Okay, this is People of the State of Michigan versus Deron Williams, docket numbers 20-538FH and 20-539FC. And Mr. Williams, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, you have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Silverthorne. And Mr. Silverthorne has informed me that on docket 538, this is a plea to count 1. And on docket 539, this is a plea to counts 2 and 3. Did I say that right, Mr. Silverthorne?
Yes, Your Honor.
And will you waive reading of the balance of the informations?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Allen, would you read then, please?
In file 20-538-FH, State of Michigan, County of Hingham, in the name of the people of the State of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about June 1st, 2020, at 5912 South Waverly Road, City of Lansing, Ingham County, the defendant did in count 1 commit the offense of assaulting, resisting, or obstructing a police officer causing injury, and that he did assault, batter, wound, resist, obstruct, oppose, or endanger Officer Alex Slobin, a police officer of the Lansing Police Department, that the defendant knew or had reason to know was performing his or her duties and caused a bodily injury requiring medical attention or medical care to that person, contrary to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 4 years and/or $5,000. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under Michigan law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement or under Michigan law for another violation arising from the same transaction and was committed against the peace and dignity of the State of Michigan. And in file 20-539-FC, State of Michigan, County of Ingham, in the name of the people of the State of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about August 11th, 2020, at Baker and Lyons, City of Lansing, Ingham County, the defendant did in count 2 commit the offense of carrying a concealed weapon, that he did carry a dangerous weapon, to wit, a revolver-style handgun, concealed on or about his or her person, contrary to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 5 years or $2,500, mandatory forfeiture of weapon or device, and in count 3, committed the offense of felon in possession of a firearm, that he did possess a firearm when ineligible to do so because he had been convicted of discharge in or at a building, a specified felony, and the requirements for regaining eligibility had not been met, contrary to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 5 years and/or $5,000, mandatory forfeiture of weapon or device, and was committed against the peace and dignity of the State of Michigan.
Mr. Williams, you're being charged here in one of these files with resisting and obstructing causing injury. That is a felony punishable by up to 4 years in prison. And on the other file, carrying a concealed weapon, a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. And being a felon in possession of a firearm, a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Also, if you were on parole at the time of the commission of any of these offenses, you'd have a mandatory consecutive sentence. Have you had enough time to talk about these charges with your attorney?
Yes.
And do you understand the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about what we're doing?
No.
And how do you want to plead, Mr. Williams?
Guilty.
If your plea of guilty is accepted by this court, it means you won't have a trial of any kind, and you'll be giving up the rights that go along with a trial. That means you'll be giving up the right to a trial by jury, or if you didn't want trial by jury, trial by judge. You'll be giving up the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and to require the prosecutor to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You'll give up your right to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial and to be able to cross-examine them, as well as to have this court order any witnesses that you might have to appear at the trial. You'll give up your right to remain silent at the trial and not to have your silence used against you, or to testify at the trial if you wanted to testify. There's also a couple of things about appeals that are different when you plead guilty. One is when you plead guilty, you don't get an automatic right to appeal your case to the higher court. Instead, you have to ask them to hear your case and they have to agree. And the other thing is that if you plead guilty, there are many issues you simply cannot appeal. Unlike people who go to trial, if they get convicted, they can appeal everything. Do you understand that those are the rights you're giving up?
Yes, ma'am.
And also, if I accept your plea, it means you can't come back later on and try to say that the plea was the result of some promise or threat that no one told me about today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
It also means you can't come back later on and try to say that it really wasn't your own choice to plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Is there a plea agreement, Ms. Allen?
There is, Your Honor. On file 20-538-FH, in exchange for the defendant's successful plea and sentence to count 1, resist and obstruct causing injury, the people agree to dismiss count 2, agree to pay restitution on count 2 if there is any. On file 20-539-FC, in exchange for the defendant's successful plea and sentence to count 2 and count 3, we agree to dismiss the balance of the information. There's also a sentence agreement pursuant to People versus Killebrew that the defendant's minimum sentence will be on the E grid cell F1, which is a 9 to 23 range, which the parties acknowledge is a straddle cell.
Okay. And is that a full and complete statement, Mr. Silverthorne?
It is, Your Honor.
Mr. Williams, is that your understanding of the agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with it?
Yes.
You heard the prosecutor talk about this, what's called a sentence agreement or a Killebrew agreement, and it is that your sentence would be considered on a straddle cell of 9 to 23 months. That means you could get anything from 0 to 12 months in jail or up to 23 months on a minimum MDOC sentence. If for some reason I decided not to go along with any of those options, in other words, if I wanted to give you more time, I would tell you before I sentenced you, and I'd give you a chance to take back this plea if you wanted to and start over. You got all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything else that has not been said here right now in order to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Anyone used any threats to get you to do it?
No.
Is this your own choice?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you pleading guilty because you believe you are in fact guilty of these offenses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's start with the lower numbered file, the resisting and obstructing. Tell me what you did on or about June 1 of last year.
I resisted arrest, and upon my knowledge, I caused the officer to injure himself, his hand.
Okay. So an officer was performing his duties as a police officer, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You knew that he was a police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think you said you fought with him, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's your understanding that he had some sort of injury that needed medical treatment of some sort?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did that happen at the location of 5912 South Waverly Road in Lansing, Ingham County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's turn to the other file. And this is the weapons offenses. Tell me on August 11 of last year, what you did. Did you have a weapon on you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what kind?
It was a revolver.
All right, and where did you have it?
I had it on my possession, in my pants, in my shorts.
In your hand? Okay, so it was at least fully or maybe partially concealed?
Yes, ma'am.
And clearly you knew that you had it on you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you have a previous conviction that made you ineligible to possess a weapon, like discharging at a building?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's true you never went through any legal process to get your rights to possess a gun back?
Correct.
Okay, and did you possess this revolver in the location of Baker and Lyons in Lansing, Ingham County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, has the court complied with MCR 6.302, Ms. Allen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Silverthorne?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you aware of any promises, threats, or inducements other than those already placed on the record, Ms. Allen?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Silverthorne?
No, Your Honor.
The court finds the plea is understandingly and voluntarily made without undue influence, threats, or promises of leniency. It is an accurate plea. It's supported by the testimony. The plea is accepted, and I have a sentencing date of Monday, April 26th at 2:45, if that works for you, Mr. Silverthorne.
It does, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Williams, do you think you're going to be okay with me sentencing you remotely from the jail? I can do a plea without your okay, but I have to have your okay to do a sentencing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Then that'll be on April 26th at 2:45, and you should just expect, Mr. Williams, that you'll get some kind of an interview set up with the probation department that they will use to interview you for the report that I'll use for sentencing, but it'll be a remote interview at the jail. So do you have any questions before we go?
No, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Then we will see you back on the 26th of April.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And you can tell them at the jail that you're all done so that they can put the next person